Imagine spending your entire life climbing a mountain, only to reach what you believed was the top and discover that the landscape has completely changed. That is what many people experience between the ages of 65 and 75. It is one of the biggest transitions in human life, yet almost no one talks about it. People prepare for college, they prepare for marriage, they prepare for raising children, they even prepare financially for retirement. But very few prepare for the emotional and psychological shift that comes when the roles that once defined them begin to change. For decades, life follows a predictable rhythm. There are jobs to do, deadlines to meet, bills to pay, children to raise, and responsibilities that demand attention every single day. These obligations can feel exhausting, but they also provide something many people never notice until it disappears: a sense of identity. A career is more than a paycheck. Being a parent is more than providing food and shelter. Even simple routines like commuting to work or helping grandchildren with homework quietly answer one important question every day: why do I get up this morning? Then sometimes almost overnight, those answers begin to fade. Retirement arrives. Children become fully independent. Grandchildren grow older and need less help. Friends move away or become occupied with their own health challenges. In some cases, a spouse passes away, or aging parents are no longer there. Without realizing it, a person may lose several important social roles within just a few years. What makes this transition especially difficult is that it often happens without any visible warning signs. From the outside, everything may appear perfectly normal. The person may be financially stable, physically healthy, and living in the same home they have occupied for years. Yet internally, something feels different. Days that were once full of purpose suddenly feel unusually quiet. The calendar becomes less crowded. The phone rings less often. Conversations become shorter. Time, which once seemed scarce, suddenly feels endless. Psychologists have long recognized that humans are deeply connected to purpose and routine. The brain is not simply designed to solve problems. It also thrives on feeling needed. When daily responsibilities disappear, many people mistakenly assume they should feel relaxed and happy all the time. Instead, they are surprised by feelings of restlessness, uncertainty, or even guilt for not being productive. These emotions are far more common than most people realize, yet they are rarely discussed openly. Another challenge is that society often sends subtle messages that reinforce these feelings. Much of the modern world celebrates youth, speed, and constant achievement. Older adults may begin to feel as though they are becoming less visible, even though their experience and wisdom have never been more valuable. This is not because they have lost their worth, it is because the way society measures value often changes as people age. But here is the encouraging truth: this stage is not simply about losing old identities, it is also an opportunity to build new ones. Research consistently shows that people who replace old roles with meaningful new activities adapt far better during this transition. Some become mentors, others volunteer, learn new skills, travel, create art, join community groups, or strengthen family relationships. The specific activity matters less than the feeling that their actions continue to make a difference. Perhaps the greatest lesson of ages 65 to 75 is this: purpose does not retire. While careers may end and responsibilities may change, the human need to contribute remains remarkably strong. Those who recognize this invisible transition and intentionally create a new sense of meaning often discover that this chapter of life can become one of the richest, wisest, and most deeply fulfilling they have ever experienced. One of the biggest misconceptions about aging is that the body simply wears out with time, as though it were a machine destined to break down no matter what a person does. While aging does bring biological changes, the story is far more complex and far more hopeful. Between the ages of 65 and 75, the body is still remarkably capable, but it begins to operate under a different set of rules. The habits that once had only a small effect on health now have a much greater impact, for better or worse. Many people notice that activities they performed effortlessly a decade earlier now require more energy. Climbing stairs leaves them slightly more breathless. Recovering after a long walk takes a little longer. A night of poor sleep affects them more than it once did. These changes are real, but they are not signs that the body has stopped adapting. Instead, they reflect a natural shift in how the body manages energy, repairs tissues, and responds to physical demands. One of the most important changes involves muscle. Beginning in middle adulthood and accelerating later in life, people naturally lose muscle mass and strength if those muscles are not regularly challenged. Scientists call this process sarcopenia. It does not happen overnight, and it is not inevitable in its most severe form. The body follows a simple principle. It strengthens what it uses and gradually lets go of what it does not. When muscles are used through walking, lifting, gardening, or simple resistance exercises, they continue sending powerful signals that help preserve strength and function. Balance also becomes increasingly important during this stage of life. Balance is not just about standing on one foot. It is the result of constant communication between the eyes, inner ears, nerves, muscles, and brain. As these systems change with age, the body relies even more on regular movement to keep them working together efficiently. That is why physically active older adults often maintain confidence in their movements, while inactivity can gradually make everyday tasks feel less secure. Metabolism changes as well. The body typically burns fewer calories than it did in younger years, partly because muscle tissue requires more energy than fat tissue. This means nutrition becomes more important than ever. Eating enough protein, staying hydrated, and choosing nutrient-rich foods help support muscles, bones, and the immune system. Small nutritional habits that once seemed insignificant now play a much larger role in maintaining overall health. Sleep often changes too. Many older adults find themselves waking earlier, sleeping more lightly, or experiencing more interruptions during the night. Although these changes are common, good quality sleep remains essential because it is during sleep that the body repairs tissues, regulates hormones, strengthens the immune system, and consolidates memories. Protecting healthy sleep habits becomes another important investment in long-term well-being. Perhaps the most encouraging discovery from aging research is that the body never completely loses its ability to adapt. Even people who begin exercising in their 70s can improve muscle strength, walking speed, balance, and endurance. Bones respond to weight-bearing activity. The heart becomes more efficient with regular aerobic exercise. Muscles continue building new proteins when challenged appropriately. The body may adapt more slowly than it did at 30, but it still responds remarkably well to consistent effort. This is why many conditions often blamed entirely on old age are actually influenced by prolonged inactivity. Weak legs, poor balance, reduced endurance, and limited mobility are frequently the result of muscles and systems that have not been asked to work, rather than a body that has permanently lost its potential. Age changes the starting point, but daily habits determine much of the journey. The years between 65 and 75 are therefore not a signal to stop moving. They are the years when movement becomes one of the most powerful forms of medicine. Every walk, every stretch, every healthy meal, and every good night's sleep sends the same message to the body. Stay strong, stay adaptable, and keep preparing for the years ahead. The body is still listening. The question is what message it receives each day. When people think about aging, one of the first fears that often comes to mind is memory loss. Many assume that getting older automatically means becoming forgetful, slower, or mentally weaker. Misplacing the car keys, forgetting a name for a moment, or walking into a room and wondering why can feel alarming, especially between the ages of 65 and 75. It is easy to jump to the conclusion that the brain is simply declining, but modern neuroscience tells a much more fascinating story. The aging brain does not merely lose abilities, it also reorganizes, adapts, and develops strengths that younger brains often lack. The human brain contains billions of nerve cells connected through trillions of pathways. Throughout life, these connections are constantly changing in response to experiences, learning, and daily habits. This remarkable ability to reorganize itself is known as neuroplasticity. For many years, scientists believed this process largely stopped in adulthood. Today, research shows that the brain continues to form and strengthen connections well into older age. While it may learn differently than it did at 20, it never completely loses its capacity to adapt. One noticeable change is the speed at which the brain processes information. It may take a little longer to recall a specific word or remember where an object was placed. This slower retrieval can be frustrating, but it does not necessarily mean the memory has disappeared. In many cases, the information is still stored. It simply takes more time to access. Think of it like searching a very large library. The books are still there, but finding the right shelf may require a few extra moments. Interestingly, while certain types of memory become less efficient, other mental abilities often become stronger. Older adults tend to excel at recognizing patterns, understanding complex situations, and drawing on decades of accumulated experience. Instead of relying only on quick reactions, the brain increasingly uses a broader network of knowledge to solve problems. This is one reason why many older individuals make thoughtful decisions in situations that would overwhelm someone with less life experience. Emotional regulation is another area where the aging brain often improves. Studies suggest that many adults between 65 and 75 become better at managing stress, resolving conflicts, and keeping difficult situations in perspective. The emotional highs and lows that felt overwhelming in earlier decades may gradually become easier to navigate. Years of experience teach the brain that many challenges are temporary, allowing it to respond with greater patience and resilience. Learning also remains possible throughout this stage of life. Whether it is learning a new language, mastering a musical instrument, exploring technology, or developing a creative hobby, the brain continues to respond to mental challenges. Every new skill encourages the formation of fresh neural connections. Although learning may require more repetition than it once did, the process itself keeps the brain active and engaged. In fact, lifelong learning has been associated with better cognitive health and a greater sense of purpose. Physical activity plays an important role as well. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients that support healthy brain cells. It also stimulates the release of substances that help protect existing neurons and encourage the growth of new connections. Something as simple as regular walking can improve attention, memory, and overall cognitive function. The brain and body are deeply connected, and caring for one almost always benefits the other. Social interaction is equally important. Meaningful conversations, shared experiences, and strong relationships challenge the brain in ways that solitary activities cannot. Listening, responding, empathizing, and remembering details all require complex mental processes. People who stay socially engaged often maintain sharper thinking than those who become isolated. The greatest misunderstanding about the aging brain is that change always means decline. In reality, the brain is constantly adjusting to new circumstances. It may trade speed for accuracy, quick recall for deeper understanding, and impulsive reactions for thoughtful judgment. These are not signs of failure, they are signs of a brain that has evolved through decades of experience. Between the ages of 65 and 75, the brain is not simply writing its final chapters, it is refining the knowledge, wisdom, and emotional insight gathered over a lifetime. When it is nourished with movement, curiosity, healthy relationships, and continuous learning, it remains one of the most adaptable and extraordinary organs in the human body. There is a health risk that receives far less attention than heart disease, diabetes, or high blood pressure, yet it quietly affects millions of people between the ages of 65 and 75. It cannot be detected with a blood test, and it does not always cause physical pain. In fact, a person may smile, carry on conversations, and appear perfectly fine while experiencing it every day. That hidden risk is loneliness. Far from being just an unpleasant emotion, loneliness has been shown by scientific research to influence the body in ways that can affect both physical and mental health. As people move through this stage of life, their social world often changes in ways they never expected. Retirement means seeing coworkers less often. Children become busy with careers and families of their own. Friends may move away, develop health problems, or pass away. Even neighbors who were once familiar faces can gradually disappear from daily life. None of these changes happen all at once, but over several years they can quietly reduce the number of meaningful interactions a person has each day. What makes loneliness especially difficult is that it is not simply about being alone. Many people enjoy spending time by themselves and feel perfectly content. Loneliness is the feeling that meaningful connection is missing. A person can live in a crowded household and still feel lonely, while someone living alone may feel deeply connected to family, friends, or a community. The difference lies not in the number of people nearby, but in the quality of relationships. The human brain has evolved to depend on social connection. For thousands of years, survival depended on living in groups. Being isolated often meant greater danger, so the brain developed systems that respond strongly to prolonged separation. When loneliness becomes chronic, the body may remain in a mild but persistent state of stress. Stress hormones such as cortisol can stay elevated for longer periods, influencing the immune system, sleep quality, blood pressure, and even the body's ability to recover from illness. Researchers have found that long-term social isolation is associated with an increased risk of depression, anxiety, cognitive decline, heart disease, and other health challenges. People who feel disconnected may also become less physically active, eat less nutritious meals, or delay seeking medical care. These behaviors can create a cycle in which declining health makes socializing more difficult, leading to even greater isolation. The encouraging news is that meaningful relationships continue to benefit the brain and body throughout life. Every conversation, shared laugh, phone call, or visit stimulates complex mental processes. Listening, remembering names, expressing emotions, and responding to another person's thoughts all exercise different parts of the brain. Positive social interactions also encourage the release of hormones such as oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, which helps reduce stress and strengthen feelings of trust and belonging. Maintaining friendships after retirement often requires more intention than it did during working years. In the past, daily routines naturally created opportunities to connect with coworkers, neighbors, or parents at school events. After those routines disappear, friendships no longer happen automatically. They must be nurtured through regular phone calls, community activities, volunteer work, clubs, faith groups, exercise classes, or simply inviting someone for tea or a walk. While these efforts may seem small, they can have a surprisingly powerful effect on overall well-being. Equally important is finding ways to contribute to others. Helping a neighbor, mentoring younger generations, caring for grandchildren, or volunteering in the community creates a sense of purpose while strengthening social bonds. These acts remind people that they are still valued and capable of making a difference regardless of age. Perhaps the most important lesson is that loneliness is not an inevitable part of growing older. It is a challenge that can be recognized and addressed. Strong relationships are not merely pleasant additions to life. They are a vital part of healthy aging. Between the ages of 65 and 75, investing time in meaningful human connection may be just as important as exercising regularly, eating well, or taking prescribed medications. A healthy life is not built only by caring for the body. It is also built by staying connected to the people who give life meaning. There is a common belief that by the time someone reaches the age of 65, most of life's important decisions have already been made. People often imagine that the future is largely fixed, shaped mostly by genetics or by everything that happened in earlier decades. But research on healthy aging paints a very different picture. The years between 65 and 75 are not simply a period of maintaining what remains. They are a critical decade that often determines how a person will live in their late 70s, 80s, and beyond. The choices made during these years have a remarkable ability to influence independence, mobility, mental sharpness, and overall quality of life. Think of this decade as planting seeds. A seed does not produce a tree overnight, but with consistent care, it grows stronger year after year. The same principle applies to healthy aging. Small actions performed regularly may seem insignificant in the moment, yet they gradually create powerful long-term results. A daily walk, a balanced meal, a few strength exercises, meaningful conversations, or learning something new may not transform life in a single day. But repeated over months and years, these habits build resilience that can make an enormous difference later. One of the strongest predictors of independence after the age of 75 is physical function during the previous decade. People who maintain muscle strength, balance, and mobility are generally better able to continue living independently, perform everyday tasks, and recover from illness or injury. Simple activities like carrying groceries, climbing stairs, getting out of a chair, or walking without assistance all depend on abilities that can be strengthened long before they become necessary. Mental habits matter just as much as physical ones. Curiosity keeps the brain active. Reading, solving puzzles, learning new skills, exploring hobbies, or engaging in thoughtful conversations challenge the brain to create and maintain neural connections. Every time the brain is asked to solve a new problem, it practices adaptability. This continuous mental engagement helps build what scientists often call cognitive reserve, the brain's ability to function effectively even as natural age-related changes occur. Nutrition also becomes an investment in future health rather than simply a daily routine. Eating enough protein supports muscles that protect mobility. Fruits, vegetables, healthy fats, and whole grains provide nutrients that support the heart, brain, and immune system. Staying hydrated becomes increasingly important because the body's sense of thirst often becomes less reliable with age. These choices may seem ordinary, but together they help create a stronger foundation for the years ahead. Purpose is another factor that quietly shapes the future. People who wake up each morning with a reason to engage in life often remain more active, socially connected, and emotionally resilient. Purpose does not have to come from a career. It can come from mentoring younger generations, volunteering, creating art, caring for family, gardening, traveling, or simply continuing to learn and contribute. Having something meaningful to look forward to encourages both the body and mind to stay engaged. Resilience also grows through attitude. Every person between 65 and 75 will face challenges. There may be health concerns, the loss of loved ones, financial adjustments, or unexpected changes in daily life. Yet resilience is not the absence of difficulty, it is the ability to adapt. Those who remain flexible, seek support when needed, and continue looking for opportunities instead of focusing only on limitations often navigate these years with greater confidence. Perhaps the most empowering realization is that genetics are only part of the story. While inherited traits certainly influence health, daily behaviors interact with those genes throughout life. Scientists continue discovering that lifestyle choices can affect how certain genes are expressed, meaning that habits such as exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress management, and social connection play a much larger role than many people once believed. The decade between 65 and 75 is not the closing chapter of an active life. It is a bridge to the years that follow. Every healthy decision made today increases the likelihood of greater freedom tomorrow. Every step taken, every friendship maintained, every new skill learned, and every act of self-care becomes an investment in future independence. The greatest secret of this stage is not that aging is unavoidable. It is that the direction of aging remains surprisingly responsive to the choices made each day. While no one can stop the passage of time, everyone has the opportunity to influence how they travel through it.